There is a path to redemption for World of Warcraft, Warcraft, and in general, Blizzard, insofar as the game angle goes. There truly is. It's not going to be short, it certainly is going to be hard, and I think a few tricky things will have to be admitted. But make no mistake, right now Blizzard are in a sticky position. This is a rough thing that's going on. I do want to see them pull through it, for the better. And I do want World of Warcraft's best days to be ahead of it. I really do, because if they're not, then that is just a sad proposition. And it is sad seeing the game and the company like this, and their overall respectability be in this current state. I truly believe that everything in this video can happen as I go through the path to redemption. Even this segue to Bespoke Post, today's sponsor. Hit up that link below and use promo code Bellular20 for 20% off your first monthly box. They're really cool. They're a sub box where you get a wild deal of $45 for what is at least 70 in value, often much more. And here's what's great about it. You preview what you get beforehand. You can pause, swap, and cancel boxes beforehand. Meaning that the point is this. You always get a great deal on stuff that you actually want. And I've got some really cool stuff. I mean, okay, this bag, right? This bag is awesome. It's in my car right now. I still use it. These chef knives. These chef knives are not in the studio because they're in my damn kitchen right now and I use them all the time. There's the outdoors gear. There's the whiskey set, which let's just say that saw some pretty great use at our last Christmas party. What's on now with Bespoke Post? Well, throwing knives, that's pretty epic. The Speakeasy cocktail kit, something I've always wanted to get into. The Stealth EDC kit, looking real snazzy, and a bunch more as well. So Bespoke Post are the perfect way to get quality fun for $45, helping you kickstart a new hobby and get cool gear that you'll actually use. So hit up my link down below and use promo code Bellular20 for 20% off your first monthly box. Great deal, great products. Let's get into the video. Warcraft 3 Reforged is a black mark on Blizzard's reputation. We all know it. If Blizzard were privately owned, it would rightly be viewed as a crisis, and it would have been resolved. And yeah, it's an RTS game, but look at Microsoft. They know that maintaining their brands and treating them with respect is actually an important thing. And as that's been applied to Age of Empires, I mean, it's been a fantastic time to be an Age of Empires fan. The new game looks awesome to me, and Age of Empires 2 Definitive Edition is everything that Warcraft 3 Reforged was not. It's weird. Microsoft are doing that because of a greater ideal, expanding big in the game's marketplace. They're willing to take a few hits, maybe not do the most profitable right now thing because it's all about growing Game Pass and the brand. Now, while Microsoft and Blizzard are both publicly held companies, I think you can see that with Microsoft, they're really playing the long game. That's why they're investing so much into niche titles like Age of Empires and Flight Sim. Blizzard is also a publicly held company. It's not a privately held company. So for them, seemingly with a very short-term mindset, justifying the repair or remaking of Warcraft 3 Reforged seems to be untenable. Not because it's not possible, that's the important thing to understand, but because of opportunity cost. To their view, the same developers could work on something more profitable. In the short-term world of delivering quarterly earnings, it makes no sense to them to treat Warcraft 3 right. In the long-term world of fostering a loyal customer base and deep engagement, doing Warcraft 3 Reforged correctly makes complete sense. Clearly here, incentives are woefully misaligned. They are not in the interest of players. They are not in the interest of Blizzard's staff. And they're not in the long-term interest of shareholders who actually want to back up the company in the long term. If Blizzard wants to earn back its reputation, especially with its players, then fixing their most shameful release is one of the most important things they can do. The Reforge either needs to be reforged or remade. If it's being tweaked and added to in a major way, then check out this incredible post by the team behind Chronicles of the Second War. It's awesome. They're making Warcraft 2 in Warcraft 3 Reforged. They know Warcraft 3 Reforged problems better than anyone, and they should be listened to. Beyond that, if a reboot of the project is warranted, and it is, then that should be done. Doing so is not really hard. They have the means. And they need to recognize that intangible assets such as player goodwill and reputation are everything when it comes to the long-term business of games. World of Warcraft has a public image problem. They can get around this by being honest and open about how things have went wrong. Because the fundamental, undeniable fact is that World of Warcraft has had 2 below-par expansions in a row. Both expansions have had storylines that have not resonated with players broadly. Both have had substantial gameplay issues. Both have had content quality issues and content quantity issues, and both have had deep systemic issues. Most aspects of the game have been in strife. Blizzard, just admit it. Admit it, apologize, and explain how it happened. Take ownership of the mistake. And this is why. The narrative that Blizzard will want is one of redemption, regrowth, and refinding success. Those are only possible if you admit where you are right now. Take Final Fantasy XIV Legacy as an example. Square Enix were honest. That honesty led to an internal will to act, and that has now led to the most profitable game in the history of the Final Fantasy franchise. For another change, take Europa Universalis 4. It has had a string of bad releases, and its community has not been happy. Their studio head openly admitted this, apologized, took responsibility, and spoke of how they're going to change their plans around to get things back on track for the players. Why can Blizzard not do this when it is so clearly needed? I've heard that they tend internally to oversubscribe to the whole toxic troll narrative when it comes to a lot of criticism. I certainly hope I've heard incorrectly there, and that the rockstar mentality is well and truly dead, because humility and honesty are always the path forward. Owning up to their mistakes is going to allow them to own the narrative of their redemption, to set the stage for that redemption. That is the story they will want. Simple, really. It might be scary, but it will be human, and it will work. Onwards to the game. So the story of Warcraft is becoming more complex, but not in a characterful way, more in a mechanistic way. Lore speculation is fun, you know I've enjoyed doing it for years, but you can't lean hard into it while then also not doing your current plot or characters justice. Quite simply, they are trying to build a world and a cast of characters that is a bit bigger than their means to actually do so. That means they have to stop, rethink, and readjust. Now broadly, 2 types of stories are going to work well for them. First, big, simple, overarching plot lines. The ones that push the setting forward. So, the Legion is coming to Azeroth, stop them. The Lich King has risen in the north, stop him. And we see, in a natural way, the Azeroth that we know react to this new thing. That's a bit easier for people to understand, and it's a bit easier to execute in-game than, well, something along these lines. A guy you've never heard of betrayed his makers, who you've also never heard of, because he disagreed with them philosophically in a way that we're not going to explain to you whatsoever, and that guy is actually responsible, in a way, for most of the lore you've seen so far, including Warcraft 3, but you didn't know it at the time. That's Zoval. World of Warcraft's lore has been totally upended and rescoped. You know, here's loads of new characters, loads of new concepts. We're talking about the fractals now. Read the Folk and Fairy Tales book for additional lore insights that actually will be important to the narrative. Meanwhile, Bane is sitting down. And there are things with Sylvanas that sort of make sense recently, but you're still not going to know the full story of what has happened with Sylvanas in this expansion and the previous one until a book comes out. And that book is going to come out in and around the final patch of this expansion. I feel like if we understood Sylvanas the whole way through, we would have had a more compelling narrative to follow. So sure, Shadowlands is full of rich detail, but it's mostly side detail, not really core plot beats, not really core character motivations. Big, simple stories that provide the impetus to explore and flesh out new lands without having us stuck in a mire of lore, misdirection, speculation, teasing, reframing, and unclear motivation. That is the way. The story of Shadowlands could work, told across a FF14 expansion-sized narrative where, well, you're dealing with many hours of cutscenes, so much more narrative. But that just doesn't really work for the way that Blizzard likes to do the World of Warcraft narrative, which is one that is generally fast, 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 fast. So if they want to keep their gameplay style like that, and not have the player pause to do long conversations with NPCs, then they need to refactor their storyline to actually fit their means of storytelling. So, bringing core storylines back to where they are manageable will solve many problems for World of Warcraft. I mentioned 2 types of stories though. What about the other type? Well, that one is simple. Zone stories that flesh out Azeroth and add flavor. So if you succeed in the overarching story that is big and simple and does a good job of establishing your setting, while getting you a lot of the big cool plot moments, then that creates a strong base that allows you to succeed with the other type of story, which is delivering a well-realized, compelling world via fleshing out the details. The side quests, all of the bits of flavor. Shadowlands sometimes falls foul of these, as does quite a bit of BFA because of how much is crammed in. How much is crammed in, as an example like the Drust, where that's actually setting up a whole bunch of future expansion stuff, but it just ends up not really feeling super complete, or like it really goes anywhere. You do too much, you try to make all of that stuff be setting up the future expansion, and you end up with a world not really feeling like a place that people know super well, and with a bunch of those plot points not being particularly satisfying in their conclusion. So, if World of Warcraft's next expansion can solve this narrative problem, and if it's able to reverse whatever narrative direction changes have led to Battle for Azeroth and Shadowlands, which have both been narratively subpar, then I think the next expansion fundamentally will be well received, and I think we could actually get ourselves back on track for the story and the lore of Warcraft. You see, mysteries, they're fun. I love them. You know I love them. Have those mysteries hint at a broader universe. Don't have those mysteries be central parts of the plot. Because by the time we find out Sylvanas' full motivations and Zoval's full motivations, the arc will have been spread out so thin across such little content that people won't care anymore. And that is a great shame. Warcraft should not be ashamed of what it is, right? One of the reasons why Warlords of Draenor did so well, it was because Grom looked really fucking cool. That was it. May not have been the most deep and complex thing in the universe, but it had a fundamental level of appeal that resonated with people. We all know the Warlords of Draenor marketing campaign was one of the most successful they've ever had. Warcraft is decidedly old school, larger than life, rough around the edges. It's rooted in traditional fantasy. You can see a little bit of 80s cartoons, you can see a bunch of metal album art, you can see some Warhammer. That's what Warcraft is. Now I'm all for adding a little bit more, heart and stuff where you can, and those beautiful little small stories. But more and more to me, it feels like Warcraft is moving away from core Warcraft, what it used to be. And when it does, I do feel that more and more players are becoming alienated. Now, I do think there's a group of people who do vastly prefer this new way of things, but I do think there's a way to keep those people happy while also not really casting off what had worked so well up till now. Simply, I would say, let's bring the tone back to where it was. Then, another part of honoring the franchise is honoring characters and respecting them. We cannot burn through fan-favorite characters. Ner'zhul, a total waste in his appearance in the recent raid. Kel'Thuzad, a total waste of one of the franchise's greatest villains. The Jailer, he recontextualizes most of the franchise's lore. It is not a retcon, because continuity does not change, but it is a recontextualization that to people doesn't really feel like it honors their past experience with the franchise. These things dishonor the franchise, and that means that player investment in the franchise is being dishonored. Cheaply burning through the old to elevate the new, to prop it up, it is just that, cheap. I got excited when I learned that Kel'Thuzad and Ner'zhul would be in the Sanctum of Domination, and I communicated that excitement to you. We actually internally greenlit and completed what I think is one of our best videos to date. It's not out yet, it wouldn't make sense to make it be out yet, and frankly, it got a bit sad when we put all that effort into honoring the franchise with Ner'zhul, only to have that be in the raid. Look at what we got. This, which is sloppy handling of material that players have a long-term emotional investment in, it is a great way to burn people, to replace what they liked with a hastily crafted lesser substitute. Content and player experience is where Warcraft found its success. Wrath of the Lich King, known for its world, its story, and especially the likes of Ulduar and ICC. Of course, Wintergrasp for some, maybe less for others. Cataclysm bit off a bit more than it can chew. The bit that it's remembered for is the good content bit. Where it struggled is, funny enough, where the content struggled in terms of production, but we'll get into that another day. Mists of Pandaria, I mean, lots of content, banger raids, and a lot of patch content that included experimental features, cool things that pushed the game forward, like the Time Missile and Warlock Green Fire. Take Warlords of Draenor. I don't rate it highly on balance because of its overall situation. But when you look at why people enjoyed what was there, what do you have? You have raid content that was awesome. You have zones that were awesome. You had dungeons that were also brilliant. The problem, a few design issues that were pretty big, and a lack of content that resulted from that. And that was the thing with Warlords. It ran out of steam. I've heard that Legion, in fact, had a longer than normal pre-production period because after Mists of Pandaria, they could have done either Legion or Warlords. I think the movie probably tipped them towards Warlords, but of course if you saw the Rathian tease, I mean, it's pretty clear they were teasing Legion stuff. I'd heard that Legion had very early pre-production anyway. I've even heard that Path of the Titans stuff was kind of worked into artifact weapons. Path of the Titans, of course, was a scrapped Cata feature. Look, who knows how much of that is actually true, but with Warlords of Draenor having a patch cut, Legion clearly was able to come out swinging in the content department. It had so much. I mean, Mythic Plus, you can have your criticisms of it now, but it was a novel thing, and the idea of dungeons being relevant for a long time, that was exciting to people. The raids were great. Legendaries and artifacts had their issues, but they were pretty juiced up in terms of what they did, so they were fun when you got them, and the issues were not enough to tank what was there. Legion saw great success correlate with loads of new systems work, and with those systems being tied to content and player rewards that were exciting. You can sort of see why, especially when they were simple enough and when, after the initial hurdles, they didn't have a crazy amount of player friction. So Legion is an interesting one. Its systems ended up being a win in spite of themselves, and in terms of content, it nailed the idea of having a simple, overarching narrative and then being able to flesh out its world with the likes of Suramar and beautiful quests like Runas. Battle for Azeroth. Well, this is when World of Warcraft changes. Azerite's a total mess. That sends the team scrambling. Suddenly, developer time has got to go into fixing Azerite up as a feature, and into developing a bolt-on system to make the game feel less bad. Essences. Then, not happy to just remove Titan Forging and adjust loot pacing, or maybe just keep it for the final patch and not bother, they added in corruptions. Whoops. Corruptions ruined balance. They tied the good content of patch 8.3, Horrific Visions, into an entry system that sucked. They then had to work fixes to all of this in patch 8.3.5. So while Shadowlands should have been trucking away with development, they had to redirect staff to fix patch 8.3. In terms of development, PFA was all catching up on mistakes. All of that time fixing mistakes, I mean, those are mistakes that also should have been intuited at the design stage. Fixing that stuff, that's time spent not pushing the game forward with new content or working on its fundamentals in a way that will stand to the game forever. Things like class balance and core gameplay. Shadowlands, it's the same thing. The quality of life changes coming in 9.1.5 should have been there at launch. Beta has ended a year late. Just that during that year, we've all paid for subs and bought the game, and the development team has once more been forced to spend so much time fixing mistakes and oversights that they were continually warned about by the player base, and they've had to do that rather than pushing the game forward. Is it any wonder patch 9.2 feels like it's going to be a long time away? After years of this rotten cycle, we are getting a patch full of people's top requests. Patch 9.1.5 is pretty much, it's not perfect, but it's near as damn. It's going through our wish list of things we want. And the community response to that is one of indifference. That's how people feel burnt. Additionally, content is king. And all of this lost time, and this iterating on features that have little to no positive bearing in the player experience, it has left World of Warcraft woefully unable to compete in the marketplace, especially in terms of content. And this all stems from an over-reliance on systems. Spreadsheets over intuition. Creating problems for players to solve via progression, over-prioritizing the emotional experience of the game. The design direction of World of Warcraft is fundamentally unsustainable like this. It is a recipe for failure, and whatever change led to World of Warcraft's post-Legion life going in this direction quite simply must be undone. World of Warcraft progress feels disposable, and I think players are tired of it. Corruptions, soulbinds, conduits, shards of domination, Azerite, essences. We've been through the modern team's designs enough to know, by this stage as players, the grinding these things out for power right now in a patch is ultimately pointless. They are effectively an example of Blizzard removing power budget from our normal MMO gear progression and then asking us to earn that power budget back by playing, as one guy calls it, Bobby's Maze. What this is, and make no mistake, this is what it is session-based action RPG design infecting an MMORPG. And it absolutely cannot continue. Modern design trends are being misapplied out of their genre context. This teaches players terrible habits. It hijacks reward psychology in an absurdly unsustainable way, and it creates a design focus that is not rooted in player experience and satisfaction. It cannot go on. We cannot teach people that character progression is fleeting. You cannot train them to primarily center their day-to-day progression around what will, in a matter of months, fade to dust. Something has been missed in our discussion of systems. All that RNG, bing bing, wahoo, procs and effects and things that we get on our characters for combat. It's all sludge, and it needs to be killed. What it is putting lipstick on a pig. We're not making the fundamental thing better, we're just throwing stuff at it. It is not exciting, and it's almost always disposable design that is quickly replaced. That also makes combat a lot harder to read, a lot harder to intuit, and make you feel like you need a raid bot subscription. And because it's designed to be replaced with basically planned obsolescence, it is developer effort that is designed to be thrown in the bin. And to me, from a project management perspective, that seems insane. Do you know what's far more important than that? It's the fundamentals of combat and classes. If you ask most World of Warcraft players, would they like a bunch of random borrowed power procs, just a new set of them and a new way to get them in every single patch? Would they prefer that, or would they prefer new abilities and cool stuff for their class, more than we get right now, or better than we get right now? Maybe a new spec, maybe a new class. I really think people would be more interested in new cool shit. The solution for fun gameplay is not to throw distracting noise at us, it is to produce a better signal. World of Warcraft is being designed with smaller appeal than ever. Right now, World of Warcraft is an endgame, session-based team action RPG with competitive elements, more than it is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game. This inherently limits World of Warcraft's audience, leading to casual players being poorly served by the game's design and content, especially those players who play to be lost in a fantasy world, who play to enjoy their character and customize it and have it grow. This narrowing of design scope has created a hyper-focus on systems that do impact those players who enjoy the session-based ARPG elements of World of Warcraft, that harder content. And a lot of that harder content is very fun, and WoW does do it very well. But that narrow design focus has only really led to more hoops for those players to jump through to do the content that they want, which has made them dissatisfied and has seemingly reduced development effort on things that make World of Warcraft a better, more broad game for everyone. World of Warcraft's limited, seemingly theory-craft and ARPG-led design or something like that, it is a dead end that makes the game feel small. Meanwhile, Final Fantasy XIV has got player housing, the Golden Saucer, a weekly Trial of Style-like event, some of the most in-depth crafting in an MMORPG, the madness of the Blue Mage, the cool stuff with the treasure maps, a bunch of other features, even a social island with Stardew Valley inspirations coming in Endwalker, and more. With the other competing MMORPGs in the space also pushing the envelope in their own unique ways. I'll get to doing that Guild Wars 2 mount video someday, because they do cool shit there. We know Blizzard can make great fights, great raids, great dungeons. That's enough. We don't need the extra progression. At no point in the recent times has the stuff that I feel like I should do to be ready for a raid actually made me enjoy the process of raiding or World of Warcraft more. I'm sure it's driven a number up somewhere for the people who engage in it, but for me it's just made my raiding experience less fun. I mean, at least Nyalotha was kind of fun for me because I just RNG lucked out so much at the start that I didn't need to think about corruptions anymore. All this design time into those things, it just needs to go into features that expand World of Warcraft horizontally, rather than dive into the progression. I could go on, but for now, look, that is it. I think these are the most pressing matters, really, for World of Warcraft. I think these are the things that contribute to the feeling of playing the patch, not the expansion, and the expansion, not the game. And I dearly hope 10.0 does take some of these things into account. Not because it's what I personally want, but because, well, I mean, for me personally, if the game went in the direction I'd like, I'd certainly be happy. But I see hundreds, if not thousands, of comments a day about World of Warcraft. I read about World of Warcraft so much every single day, and it's all your opinions. The tweets that I get, I ask about what class people like, I get hundreds of replies, and I read them all. The video comments as well, and on the bunch of the channels that we have. And I really do try to get a sense of what it is like. You know? Towley has teased that 10.0 is going to be very different. And I dearly hope Towley is right. We need a change in direction. And if he is right, is there cause to hope? I think there could be. That is it for me. This is what I think the path to redemption is. I would love it if you shared with me what you think the path of redemption is. So with that, thank you for watching. A big thanks to Bespoke Post for supporting the channel now for so long and this video. And with that said, Have a great day, and I'll see you next time.